main message we want the people to know in Perdido Key and Escambia County and visitors alike is they're coming to this small barrier island, 17 miles long, that is the one and only home to the Perdido Key Beach Mouse. And it is everyone's responsibility to help protect that beach mouse and ensure it persists over time. Perdido Key Beach Mouse is sleeping during daytime hours. It's going to come out at night looking for food, just scurrying about the dune habitat. And it's going to go in and out several times of its burrow. Before it comes out, it's going to check out, make sure no predators are sitting there before it decides to make the run to the next cover spot to start its nightly adventure looking for seeds. They are also known to eat insects. My job is to help lead the recovery efforts for the Perdido Key Beach Mouse. Our objective tonight is to get 10 beach mice, 7 females, 3 males. In the daytime, you can see these traps perfectly good. Why are you marking those things? Why do you need to be so careful? At night, it's a totally different world. All right, okay, put some seeds. The beach mouse does not see political boundaries, jurisdictional boundaries, public lands, private lands. All it sees is habitat, suitable habitat. Something's in here. Man, all that for a ghost crab.
Oh, no way.
A lot of people hear about Perdido Key Beach Mouse, but they never see it. It's a small nocturnal animal. There's not a lot of them. They're secretive. They scurry around trying to not be seen. And the only time we see them is when we're out trapping for them. Oh, it's got a door closed.
Come on, beach mouse.
The weight does feel pretty good. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Aww.
Oh, he's a little guy.
Yeah, it looks like it might be good size. That is 19 gray babies, we sometimes will call them also.
Pretty small.
Smaller as you thought.
Smaller than most mice.
When you see something in person compared to like online, it's like a different connection. You're actually there, and instead of just like, oh, okay, whatever.
You can't recreate those cute little eyes in pictures, I'll tell you that.
The first one of the night's always the most special. Like, oh, you're just so cute. I can see you all the time, and you're still just as cute.
But it's not every day you get to see an endangered species, so pretty special.
Yes, it's a beachy. Ooh, she's trying to come out. Main predators, anything and everything wants to eat a beach mouse. You have snakes here that want to eat them, owls, foxes, and cats. Watch your legs.
We are having fantastic success tonight in catching both male and female beach mouse. We want to make sure that we're getting those mice from a variety of areas so that we can get as large of a genetic diversity as possible. We came out and set traps at about 5 o'clock this evening. Went back and had a little rest. And then now we have been out for probably about 4 hours, and we'll be out for quite a few more. So it's 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, I think.
Gonna see the sunrise?
Yeah, hopefully.
And then daybreak comes and it's back to the burrow to sleep.
For thousands of years, people have visited the sugar sand beaches of the Gulf Islands. People inhabited this rich coastal area before, during, and after the modern-day sea levels stabilized, forming Perdido Key. Rich estuaries, the warm Gulf of Mexico, and the surrounding uplands provided food to some of America's earliest people. With abundant food, their culture thrived. Artifacts unearthed by archaeologists at the nearby McKinnis site reveal the complex hunter-gatherer lives of early Gulf people. Until about 300 years ago, when the Spanish ships appeared on the horizon. While looking for a deep water passage into the bay during a storm, the Spanish had become perdido. Perdido is a Spanish word for lost. They christened this island Perdido Key. A tribe of Pensacola Native Americans camping here showed the Spaniards the way to deeper water. Then, as now, Perdido Key is a place to get lost and a place to be found. From early people to modern people, the Perdido Key Beach Mouse has been as constant as the gentle waves breaking against the 17 miles of white sand dunes. Without the dunes and their plant roots holding the sand in place, the beach would just blow away. Beachfront development in the 1970s and 1980s disconnected the beach mouse population into shrinking islands of habitat. Public lands protect half of Perdido Key, including a Florida state park, a national park, and an Alabama state park. Protection from development was not enough for this little mouse. This barrier island sits on a frequent storm track for hurricanes in Florida. After Hurricane Frederick blasted through in 1979, the Perdido Key Beach Mouse got federal protection under the Endangered Species Act. By 1986, less than 30 mice remained only at Gulf State Park. Sandwiched between the Perdido Highway overpass and new condominiums, the population was boxed in. Domestic cats roaming wild in the dunes were especially lethal predators. Extinction was knocking on the door. A partnership of people rose up to avoid losing this precious species. They moved some mice from Gulf State Park to Gulf Islands National Seashore between 1986 and 1988. Mice spread out on Gulf Islands National Seashore. After Hurricane Opal in 1995, the mice disappeared from Gulf State Park. Biologists moved some mice from Gulf Islands National Seashore to Perdido Key State Park just when the population began to rebound in early 2004.
Hurricane Opal, as bad as it was nothing compared to Hurricane Ivan in September of 2004. We were pretty confident that storm had a good chance of making the Perdido Key beach mouse go extinct. One of our biologists came out the night before the storm. She put out 20 traps and caught 4 males and 4 females. One of the females was pregnant. So when a hurricane comes, we don't really know what the mice do because we're typically evacuating ourselves. During Hurricane Ivan, we lost this entire front dune. It was flattened. Even to this day, there's building materials on the bay side here that got washed from the front all the way over. The road got taken out. So if the paved road is taken out and a big concrete building is taken out, a mouse in its burrow didn't have much of a chance.
Something told me to bring a ladder. Sure enough, the first floor was completely washed through, washer and dryers out in the parking lot. I don't know where the huge, enormous TV went. The stairs were gone. And so we put the ladder up and we got up to the second floor and everything was dry. My glasses were by my bed, the curtains were not wet. I mean, we had to all start over. Everything that had not been damaged was molded. It took us 3.5 years to rebuild.
Likely what happens is the mice that live on the secondary dunes back there survive because the storm surge wipes out this habitat that's behind us here and kills most of the mice that are here. What we don't know is what happens in a burrow under the sand and the water comes over the top of you. You've got an air pocket there. Can you survive?
Most people have never heard of a beach mouse. Fewer people have seen beach mice.
The one farthest over is Archie. This one over here on the wheel by himself is Atlas. And then the other one on the wheel is Apollo.
Here at the zoo, they're in tanks, so they don't have a large area to run. So we give them a wheel, which they spend a lot of their time on at night. And we also will hide food around their enclosure. They're gonna be looking for it. They get all of these cute little handmade enrichments. One of their favorites is a paper towel tube that we can push in sunflower seeds, and they have to pull the sunflower seeds out. We change it out often to keep them nice and busy and happy. So after the 8 mice were captured and rescued from the island, they were sent to a facility that specialized in breeding mice. They were there for a few years, but with very limited breeding success. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service partnered with Brevard Zoo, Santa Fe Zoo, and Palm Beach Zoo to start a breeding population. Zookeepers are really good at knowing what makes animals happy, and happy animals have a lot of babies. They thought about beach mice and their natural habitat in the dunes, and they took these big tanks and they filled them with 500 pounds of sand. They added some dune plants, put the male and the female in the tank. They were able to dig their burrows. They were given things to make their nests. We went from having just a handful of mice at the beginning of 2008 up to almost 80 beach mice by the end of the year. Once those mice are old enough to be separated from mom, we pull them from the sand tanks. And then we do set them up in tanks that are filled with shavings, and that's just for the ease of taking care of the mice so we can get regular checks on them. This population that we have here is an insurance population. So if another hurricane comes through or if a disease comes through and wipes out that population of mice, we have mice that are ready to repopulate the island.
We still have a goal to get this next 100 foot and a long-term goal if we can find a better funding source. We'd ideally like to buy, everything to the state park.
That's great.
It'd be beautiful. We reached out to U.S. Fish and started to form a partnership to develop a habitat conservation plan for the entire key to deal with all these endangered species issues. And we can give them a very predictable timeline on when they could get their permit to construct. The availability of a predictable permit really has helped the key almost rebrand itself. It prides itself on still being the lost key. They are embracing the habitat preservation and as a quality of life aspect.
Well, we've been coming to Perdido Key for probably 30 years. It's just a beautiful place, and the sunrises and the sunsets are incredible. My daughter found this lot, and then we found out you had to have a beach mouse permit in order to build. I'd heard of the beach mouse because I had heard that it had prohibited some development. At the time, it was with the federal government of getting the permits, and it took over a year to get a permit. Towards the end of the process, they turned the control of the beach mouse over to the county. So once they did that, things moved along much faster.
We placed the house with consideration of the natural features. So we avoided a dune on the north side of the property, which will support the mouse in case of a flood event. So most of the parking goes under the house. That reduces the footprint. All natural vegetation. You can see all dune vegetation, dune sunflowers, sea oats, blue stem. Lighting is very minimal, all low wavelength, minimal step lighting. So it's wildlife lighting now, it's not just turtle lighting. We're compressing the livable space to support habitat around the house. So compatibility for humans and nature. We saw mice tracks around the boardwalk, so this lot is occupied by the Perdido Key Beach Mouse.
I'm happy to do my part with lights or plantings or whatever we need to do. Well, you can have dogs, but no cats. I'm a dog person. We have osprey that come over from the state park, which is right behind my house, and they're on their own little schedule twice a day fishing, so that's fun to watch. There are porpoises out front, fun to watch, and pelicans, and so there's always something to see.
What about watching those beach mice?
I haven't found the beach mice. I've found beach mice tracks, I think, and maybe beach mouse holes, but I'm not sure if I'm looking at crab holes or beach mouse holes, or maybe they share, I'm not sure. They are nocturnal, so I don't think I'm going to come upon one anytime soon.
A lot of people come down to Perdido Key to enjoy this little slice of heaven. These core public lands are really the reason that it is presented that way. Some people want to live here, some people just want a vacation here. But in reality, the beach mouse lives here year-round, all the time, needs that piece of heaven for itself as well. We just have to find that balance between the two to understand what the beach mouse needs, what the human needs.
After Hurricane Ivan hit Perdido Key and the mouse was found on the north side of the island, and the critical habitat of the mouse was extended to include most of the key. There was a lot of people that were against that, and they actually had these little rallies that were really anti-mouse. So there was a time that there was a very anti-mouse climate here. I do believe that that time has passed.
After the Hurricane Ivan, everything behind me was completely flat.
Here, they did disappear subsequent to the storm. They weren't at Gulf State Park, and they hung on at the very end of Gulf Islands National Seashore. So Hurricane Ivan just about wiped them out. We need to have a method to know when the mice are declining and when something needs to be done. And the track tubes have proved a valuable way of doing that. And when they crawl up the tube, they have to cross this ink pad, and that leaves the tracks down here. It was very disappointing to come out, and every time you check a track tube, there was nothing in it at all. They were completely gone.
And in 2005 and 2006, as we were doing hurricane cleanup, we captured the sands and placed them back here and formed a small dune and vegetated it. And now have created a dune feature that's over 3 times larger than when we first started with. The benefit of that dune is it provides protective benefits to development that's to the north, as well as it provides much needed critical foraging habitat for our endangered species on the island.
As we were preparing to reintroduce mice here from Gulf Islands, the mice moved down the coastline along an artificial berm, and mice reestablished here on their own, and they've been here ever since. The key to all that is connectivity. To let the mice naturally move and reoccupy that is great. The mouse populations, the three main ones, are now connected by some corridors that they can move along, and they've got little rest stops, many of which are vacant lots where people sold out buildings that got torn up by Hurricane Ivan.
We have some owners that wholeheartedly support it and are very easy to work with. To be able to build out here with the protections that the mouse has under the Endangered Species Act, it does require some concessions on their part.
You can always put, a restaurant, 6 blocks back. You don't have to take up the nice, sandy, natural area. It's why we're here, because we think this is the nicest area. So I think all these things work to keep it the nicest area.
I live here on Perdido Key year-round, over in Lost Key, one of the condos over there. I love the beach mouse. I love seeing the little tracks in the sand in the morning, and I really like that the beach mouse is making it possible for us to slow down the development on the island. But I don't always understand what we're doing to help him. The tunnels under the road, I don't know how the beach mice find that.
With those crossing culverts, I've crawled through all 4 of them just to know what those culverts were like from a beach mouse perspective.
There's a lot of seeds in there, a lot of eaten seeds. Look at all those little dots you see in there. I don't know, even from where you are, that's all beach mouse tracks.
If everyone were to look at the world from the point of view of the beach mouse, I imagine everyone would have a different point of view, a little more empathy for these little mice.
This used to be clearly the most endangered beach mouse of all the subspecies. Arguably, it's not anymore. It may be the St. Andrews one, which is over where Hurricane Michael just ravaged through, and the Choctawhatchee beach mouse, which is over there. Perdido Key Beach Mouse, for the first time in 30 some odd years, is occupying the entire key.
It's a 6-gram animal that occupies the most expensive land in Florida, probably. People buy Perdido Key property and they say, why is the mouse slowing down my development, or why can't I build like this how I want to? And it's just, the mouse was here first. The mouse is important to the ecosystem. It really is. You see the Ocypidi, which is the ghost crab holes. I mean, so everything's working together here in this very hostile environment.
If humans are going to live in this ecosystem, we do have to understand that hurricanes are a part of this area. They can be catastrophic, they can be minor, they can come every 3 years, they can come every 10 years, but they will come, and there will be a big one at some point.
The mouse is doing great right now, so if we can keep its habitat, we'll keep the mouse.